That leads us to the second stage of the ketogenic diet. The second stage of the ketogenic diet is called keto adaptation. When during the first 2 weeks you were trying to establish nutritional ketosis, then the second stage of the ketogenic diet is about becoming keto adapted. You might have heard about these words, being thrown around by different people, but what do they actually mean? They're not actually mutually inclusive. They have some differences. Some people may disagree with me, but which is fine. But what matters is that they're not the same. They're different conditions. Here's how I define these two. Being in ketosis is the actual metabolic state with the appropriate levels of blood sugar and ketone bodies of 0.5 millimoles. You can be in mild ketosis already after fasting for 24 hours, but it doesn't mean that you're successfully using fat and ketones for fuel. Keto adaptation, on the other hand, is the process by which your body adapts to utilizing fat and ketones as a primary source of energy. It means that you don't need glucose to produce ATP, and you can thrive on consuming dietary fat or by burning your own stored body fat for energy. Keto adaptation results from nutritional ketosis, but you don't need to be in ketosis all the time to maintain keto adaptation. You have to go through a period where your liver's enzymes and your metabolic processes change so that you could have the ability to burn fat for fuel. And this takes some time. The purpose of this stage, the keto adaptation stage, is to build up your fat burning engine by continuing to eat the ketogenic diet and incorporating more exercise into your daily regimen. So how do you exercise to become keto adapted? Well, during the initial weeks of trying to get into ketosis, your physical performance, it might suffer because you go through this small energy crisis. Intense exercise like lifting weights, sprinting, or doing very intense endurance exercise for many hours will deplete your muscle glycogen. You don't need carbohydrates to replenish your muscle glycogen stores, but you may not be able to do this during the first few weeks. Afterwards, you'll be able to perform equally as good at high intensities as you would when eating carbohydrates. Low intensity aerobic activities burn exclusively fat for fuel. This is the reason why the ketogenic diet is superior to everything else, because if you're keto adapted, then you will always have access to your own body fat, and you don't need to refeed on carbohydrates or these glucose sports drinks like Gatorade or fruit or anything like that. To first become keto adapted, you should focus more on low intensity activities, but you should still incorporate some resistance training for the other health benefits, like the increased bone density and muscle mass. Once you start feeling awesome on ketogenic diet, then you should also start incorporating both of these training modalities, the aerobic and the anaerobic energy systems for increased mitochondrial density. What I recommend is you should do resistance training 3 to 4 times per week, and stick to 2 steady-state cardio sessions with 1 day for rest and active recovery. And the active recovery day is a simple rest day where you go for a walk, do some foam rolling, or go to a sauna or have an ice bath. The biggest mistake people make is at the intensity at which they do their cardio. They think that the harder they push themselves, the better they're doing. It might work in some cases, but doing cardio anaerobically for too long isn't that good for your health. This is called the black hole training. It's this nightmare exercise zone, somewhere between a piece of cake and a Navy SEAL workout. The pace is vigorous, but it's not painful. You can enjoy it with your mind. You get this endorphin rush, which makes you think that, oh, I'm getting a good workout. But it's still too stressful for the body. Basically, the black hole is a heart rate zone that exceeds your aerobic capacity just a tiny bit. Once you can't hold a conversation anymore while you're exercising and you have to start breathing through your mouth, then you're using more glycogen and less fat for fuel. Doing this for a few minutes is fine, but most people, they never go for a run for just 10 minutes. They hit this runner's flow, and because of the adrenaline rush, they can easily empty their glycogen stores quite quickly. After that happens, the body still needs some glucose to perform at this intensity, and because of that, it begins to break down some of its protein. Too much cardio the wrong way can increase your stress hormone, the cortisol, which if you elevate it for too long, it can lead to adrenal fatigue, which is quite common amongst people who exercise. It can also cause systemic inflammation through gluconeogenesis, and it definitely increases oxidative stress and damage, because burning carbohydrates, it causes the accumulation of advanced glycolytic end products. Doing too much cardio also will tear down your joints and causes pains and aches, because you follow this repetitive motion for long periods of time, especially if you're running on pavement. Most people have terrible running form, and they simply heel strike the ground because they think that they're more fatigued than they really are. If you're doing cardio for longer than 30 plus minutes, then you should stay in this aerobic zone for the most of the time. This is the zone where your heart rate is below 60 to 70% of your VO2 max. At this intensity, you're using mostly fat and not glucose as your fuel, which is perfect because you'll be able to use the ketones and fatty acids. Becoming fully keto adapted takes several months or so. You need to really, dig deep into these fat burning pathways and, engrave them into your metabolism to gain the maximum benefits. The general guideline is that the longer you do the ketogenic diet, the easier it gets and the better you start performing. However, using carbohydrates strategically will not only improve your performance, but your health overall. People think like when you're starting keto, then you have to stay below 20 grams net for the entire life. But, there are actually a few reasons why you should occasionally get out of ketosis. Let me explain you why. Some people, they might get hormonal imbalances, like a low thyroid, or low libido, or low testosterone, because of several reasons. Maybe it'll be like they don't get enough sleep, they don't get enough micronutrients, or they exercise the wrong way. Your energy levels may also suffer from time to time on the keto because of overtraining or too much stress in your life. The ketogenic diet also causes low mucus production, which prevents your body from creating enough mucus that surrounds and moisturizes your gut intestinal walls and the mucus around your eyes. So it's a good idea to occasionally incorporate some glucose that will allow these processes to take effect. Some carbohydrate foods can also promote a healthy gut and keep your microbiome diverse and healthy. Carbohydrates can also boost your performance while you're working out, but they can also improve your sleep because of serotonin. Eating carbohydrates seasonally, like let's say some starches that start growing on autumn or during the harvest of apples at the fall, they will fit better with the circadian rhythms and your own individual genetic blueprint. For instance, if you live in a northern climate, then you don't get access to fruit and carbohydrates year round, and your genetic blueprint has become accustomed to those types of things because your ancestors they ate that kind of way. And of course, it's nice to sometimes eat foods that aren't bacon and eggs or vegetables, and to mix things up to bring in some variation into your diet. But don't worry, getting kicked out of ketosis, it doesn't mean that you're gonna lose your keto adaptation. You'll be able to effectively use fat for fuel despite that. It's just that you gain some other benefits of metabolic flexibility by incorporating some carbs strategically. And like I said, you don't need to maintain nutritional ketosis 24/7 to be keto adapted. You're not going to get into ketosis by eating keto for just one day of the week, and You're not going to lose your fat burning metabolism by getting out of ketosis from time to time either. You know, the body is trying to maintain homeostasis, and it doesn't want to go through these random changes all the time. It wants to maintain this inner equilibrium and balance.